I really like what you said, Randy. I agree. I think that it's easy to group people into one category, but I guess what else I would add is we want to remember that millennials are young people, and young people need help to grow up. So when you think about people who are misbehaving, if they're millennials, it's because they're really young. I mean, I'm 34 years old, so I'm not exactly super senior myself, but most millennials are in their early 20s, or let's say maybe they're 18 or 25. They need a lot of mentorship, and so I think that's why they get a bad rep. They say, "Oh, these millennials don't know what they're doing." Of course they don't know what they're doing because they're starting their careers, and they look to us or to people who are more experienced for mentorship and guidance. Some people are not open to it, just like at any age group, but many of them I think are looking for somebody who's more experienced to say, "What can I learn from you?" So that's, I think, a big part of that's not really addressed. Is that it's like if you were to say to a 5-year-old, "Hey, how come you don't know how to cook?" I'm 5. I don't understand the question. You know? Yeah, I like what the other panelists said. I think those are both very nice points. What I would add, I guess, is I think it's important to accept losses along the way, kind of mistakes. Like I started out freshman year in college studying computer science, which turned out to be a really big, amazing industry that I didn't know about at the time. And I graduated with a degree in environmental science from Michigan, but I don't do anything related to that now, except for try to support environmental causes. But I think along the way, what I've tried to do is try to figure out when am I not making progress? When have I kind of reached the end of this doesn't make sense to me, or it doesn't work, or I'm not getting the results I want? Be able to kind of accept those losses and move on. You know what I mean? Not kind of stay too long. I think that's one of the things that I try to do is try to say, okay, I gave this 6 months or a year or several years. How far have I gotten, and should I keep going or maybe change directions? I think that's a very important thing that everybody does, but it's a life lesson that I think can be applied to work or your personal life, where it's important to both stick it out and be persistent and not wait around too long if something's really not working. So that's what I try to do. I think ridicule usually comes from a lack of understanding, you know what I mean, or lack of knowing somebody, or lack of spending time with them. I think in our society we move fast, we drive, we're not around each other as much. Like even this meeting, most of the people in this group, we might not see each other again. Even though we have a nice group here, we could all learn through these kind of conversations, but I don't think we do that enough as a society, so we don't kind of know each other. We might say, oh, that's that group over there, this is the group over here. So I think that's an important barrier. And I think to your point, Michael, I think part of the challenge is usually millennials work best when they're working in teams. For example, let's say Mark Zuckerberg, right? Smart guy, obviously creative, new ideas that weren't around 20 years ago. But without Sheryl Sandberg, who's a seasoned executive, I'm sure, or the other people who are involved, I'm sure Facebook wouldn't be as successful. So I think that's a really hard balance. How do you look to a millennial and say, wow, they're thinking about things that haven't been around before, but they need some kind of other expertise. Like think about Justin Bieber. Now, I don't necessarily listen to his music, but he became popular, and there's nothing wrong with his music, but not my taste maybe, but he became popular through YouTube videos, which wasn't even a platform, let's say in the 1990s. But without the expertise of the executive team that works with him, or the marketing, or whatever it is they do, he wouldn't be the Justin Bieber he is today. I think that's a very hard balance, to both believe in the younger generation in terms of what are the new things, and also to leverage what we already know. In other words, you don't want to throw out what's already existing and working, but you don't want to just stick to it and say we have to keep this going until the end of time. I think that's a really hard thing to do, and it's a case-by-case decision. His name is Dr. Margolis. He's in his late 80s, but he's a very contemporary thinker. In other words, there are many things that he might do or he's open to that you might consider, or somebody might write him off and say, well, he's an older guy, is he really open to change? So I think we don't want to write anybody off. You know what I mean? It's important to kind of do a real assessment, to meet people and see what are they actually like, who can I collaborate with? Sometimes it could be a great partnership with somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, and it could be a kind of a working together. So that's hard to, you have to kind of tease it out and actually meet the people and see. Just because they're a certain age doesn't mean they're not open to what I'm doing. You know what I mean? That would be my question.